Rich. I'm so excited to have the one, the only, the great, the fabulous Tim Cox. Tim Cox is joining us today, and he's going to talk about so many different things, especially when it comes around your operating system, the business's processes. If any of you have read my book or listened to the audio version of Exit Rich, you should know about my 6 P's: people, product, processes, Patreons, and profits and proprietary, of course. We're going to talk about Tim's unique methodology when it comes to operating systems and how every business should be environmentally conscious and have an environmental component as part of their vision, as part of their big picture. So, who is Tim Cox? Why don't you all want to know? Tim Cox is an award winning speaker, coach, business optimization strategist. Tim has successfully owned and led companies in a variety of industries: manufacturing, hospitality, sales, marketing, event production. Tim is committed to serving his community with a particular interest in creating opportunities for social justice. Wow, don't we need more social justice in the world? Equality. We definitely need more equality and environmental responsibility. So let's go ahead and welcome Tim Cox to the show. He's going to share a little bit more information about himself, what he was like as a little boy, and what got him involved in entrepreneurship, operating systems, and most importantly, giving back to the community and making the world a better place. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thanks, Michelle. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here today.
Awesome. Well, let's get this party started. Tell us, I always like to ask a question. What were you like as a little boy, Mr. Tim Cox? Were you cocky?
Um, I have to admit, I was a unique child. My mom always says that having me first made all the other kids much easier. Because I was the one to always say, why? No, I don't think so. Yeah, what about this? I've really come from a place of curiosity my entire life. And also the thing, I like to be in charge. And so, that included maybe being told I was a little bossy by my friends or the kids in the neighborhood because it needed to be my way. I hope that I've, mellowed as I've aged, and I'm pretty sure I have, but it's still part of me.
Well, let's stop right there because you said a couple of big things that I think most entrepreneurs can relate to. And I always say when I was a little girl, I was curious. I didn't play with toys. I'd walk up to strangers at the bank, grocery store, church, and say, "Hey, what do you do? How do you do it? How'd you get started?" Like I really didn't have any small talk. And so you said you were curious. And that's how I was. I feel like I'm still curious, like a kid in a candy store. I can't wait to see how somebody built a multi-billion-dollar business out of the garage or the kitchen table. And then you said another thing that you were controlling or bossy. And so I was like that too. I told my mom I'm never going to work for anybody because I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. And so that's always been my biggest pet peeve, still is today, that don't tell me what to do. And I think that's common traits between most entrepreneurs is you got to be curious and you got to be a little bossy or in control or have that mindset that you really do want to be in control. But the thing about entrepreneurship is you got to let go of the control to grow.
No, I think that's a great point. An interesting part that you mentioned there was candy. And, when I was younger, parents would often bring you into the grocery store and leave you in the candy aisle. And then they'd go around and do the shopping that was considered safe back, at least where I lived in the day. And my mom would come back and I would have like 3 or 4 candy bars and she'd say, "Did you pay for those?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I didn't. But that woman over there bought me this one. And that man bought me this one." Because I was that kid that would just say, "Hey, good talking to you. Will you buy me this candy bar?" And so I'd get a couple pieces of candy just from talking to the other people in the store. Never met a stranger as a kid, that's for sure.
Wow. Well, so you got people at a very young age to buy you candy?
Yep.
So then when you got older and you started drinking, you went to bars and probably had women buy you drinks.
Not so lucky there. I mean, I think some of that, that lack of fear as a kid goes away as you mature a little bit.
Well, that's it. So what age were you? Because you were obviously started out as a salesperson to get other people to buy candy for you.
Yeah, I was probably like 4 or 5. That it was just, yeah. I mean, it
Okay.
was definitely a different age. Like if you left your kid in in this candy aisle at the store and walked around now, they'd probably call the police. But in the small town I grew up in the 70s, that was totally permissible.
Yeah, yeah. Not these days. You're for sure. Yeah, because they're like, what did they put in the candy?
Yeah.
What's the candy laced with? They're trying to get a little boy to go out to the vehicle. All right, so let's kind of move on. So tell us a little bit more. You were curious, you were bossy. So what really led you to where you are today into entrepreneurship?
I actually jumped into entrepreneurship really young and somewhat by, again, not liking being told what to do or not thinking that people were recognize my worth. And my great grandma and I started a lemonade stand when I was just like 7. That quickly exploded into multiple outlets throughout town because we added fresh squeezed lemonade and pasties, which are hand pies. And my great grandma was the best cook in the entire world. And people would line up to buy these. My first hire was my babysitter, and my second hire was my babysitter's grandmother. So hit success kind of early from a business standpoint, and that really turned me on to business. Later, in college, I started a company that worked with leadership development with student organizations with a friend, and we built that company to work with international organizations, coordinating conferences and events for high school and college students, Greek organizations, student councils. We coordinated those throughout, and I just kept always having an interest in business. And I build something, I'd sell it, then I'd figure out what do I want to do next. Maybe I'd take some time off and travel. I always find when I get really bored, I always go out and get a bartending job just because I like to have that socialness in there as I figure out my next thing. And then I find honestly that it helps recharge my batteries in there. The other part for me that really made a big difference is I'm always looking how to work smarter, not harder. I'm a hard worker, but I don't like to waste time. And I don't like to waste energy. And I like to really spend time doing what I love to do, as well as, build businesses and work with everyone.
Okay, so you built businesses. How many have you built and sold?
5.
5. Okay, and have you sold them yourself, or have you sold them through an M&A advisor like myself?
I didn't know about you till recently. I wish I did. I probably would have a lot more money had I
You'd
known
probably
you
be
sooner.
retired. You'd probably be able to retire exit rich now. If you didn't know me. All right, so you did that, and so what did you learn in business? What was the biggest thing that you felt you learned in which to create a business that works for you rather than a job you're working for?
The biggest thing that I learned is to reach real success, you must surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and are more capable than you. Now, they might not be all capable in the whole picture, but you want experts in their area of expertise, and you want to build them and trust them to be sound advisors to you. You don't need to have all the answers, but you need to be able to listen to all of the answers and sort through them as a business person. The other thing that I found is the magic of the team. When the team has the right people in the right seats, it's incredible what can be accomplished.
So you've been either reading my book or listening to my podcast, because that's what I always say. You got to have the right people, the right butts in the right seats, and you got to ask the who question. Who opens the door, who answers the phone, who handles customer service, marketing, legal, accounting, manufacturing, quality control. I mean, the list goes on and on. But the clue is that 10, we should not be next to the who. We need to run a business that can run without us. I mean,
100%, 100%. And I will tell you, with the clients that I work with, that's often the first thing we have to get through to them, because they're so often used to having every answer and controlling everything. And that's not an
I
answer
think
for. Go
they're,
ahead.
yeah, not to cut you off, but they think they have every answer. They're delusional because nobody has every answer. I mean, you just
Agree 100%.
yeah, that you really have to listen to others and determine what to sort through and what to utilize. Yeah, go ahead.
And that's, the other thing that I really learned through everything that I've went through, because there's been good times, there's been bad times, there's been challenges throughout that time. But it's that willingness to continue to evolve and improve, which really makes a difference. And sometimes you bring in experts to help. Sometimes you can do the study on your own. Sometimes it's within your team. And it's by, just incorporating all of that level of expertise and picking the parts that work for your company, sorting through them. The other part that's so important is you, as the leader of your company, you must have a vision that everyone in the company understands and can get behind.
And I think there's something to unpack right there, Tim, because a lot of visionaries, including myself, will be like, "Oh, I'm doing this and this and this and this, and we're going the company in all these different directions," but I don't always communicate it with the team. And many entrepreneurs don't always communicate it with the team. And I agree with you. It's the team's got to buy into it. Everybody's got to be on the same page.
And as you said, so often that isn't communicated or even defined by a visionary. They have a vision, but they aren't able to articulate that vision to their team. And so if you go to their team and you ask them what the vision is, you're going to get multiple answers. And that's so with every client that I work with, we really do sit down and we dive into what is the vision. And we ask those questions so they can get to a point that they can communicate it with their team, and also it becomes part of their marketing strategy. It becomes a part of their culture. And that makes such a difference.
Yeah. Yep. 1,000%. All right. So, operating systems. You obviously learned that you can't build a successful company without what I call the third P, which is processes. My first P is people. Processes. You call it operating systems. I call it processes. Why don't we kind of jump in there and to talking about operating systems? You've used different ones along the way. You've got your own unique system that you use. But I'm going to ask a silly question right now. But a lot of owners don't implement operating systems or processes. So it's really not a silly question. Why is it so imperative for companies to have processes in place, operating systems in place, and what I call an integrator, which we can jump into in a few minutes?
Certainly. So I'm a big football fan, and I always say that an operating system is like the playbook. For a leadership team to run a business effectively, it needs a playbook that lays out the expectations for each person on the team at each moment of the game. It's the only way to ensure the long-term success for the company. A good business operating system gets everyone in the company on the same page with the same vision, working towards the same goals. We need to know the expectations, the processes, and really define the accountability so everyone's in sync and working together. Without an operating system, companies really have one and it's just accidental. But when they do that, there's often miscommunication, individual agendas, conflict, or, they keep doing the same issue over and over and over again. Something comes up, they don't solve it. They put out a fire here, run over here, but they're not getting anywhere. And
so I always say entrepreneurs are firefighters. Go ahead.
Well, that's a good point. But again, a good firefighter and they have a plan. Like a major forest fire, it doesn't get put out all at once. It gets put out step by step with everyone knowing their role.
Yeah, they have a team.
Exactly. They have a team that knows the expectations, knows what they're accountable for, and knows how they contribute. So often people work for a company and they just do what they're told, but they don't see how they fit in to the success of the company or even know if the company is successful. And that part of building the team really, people want to contribute, or I should say most people do, but almost all. And so we give them the opportunity by defining what our expectation is and where we're going. And then they might have ideas that will contribute to that. And that's when that team concept really happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so What do you feel? Because this is what I think. I think most entrepreneurs. I don't think I've been dealing with entrepreneurs for the last 22 years. And, like I've always said, or Steve Forbes, who endorsed my book, Exit Rich, he's always said 80% of businesses on the market will never sell, and M&A source says 90%. So that means you have less than 10 to 20% chance of success. And there's so many reasons for that. But one of the biggest issues, again, is we go back to the owner, who's the visionary, who's the control freak, kind of like you and I, who thinks they have to have their hands in every pie. And I've grown exponentially from that little girl. Now I focus on my best, delegate the rest. But I always say a visionary, an entrepreneur, really needs to get an integrator, because it's almost impossible to be both, to have the vision and then to be the integrator, to make sure that, like you said, that vision is being articulated, that vision is being communicated to the team. The team understands that, the team buys into it, and everybody's mission is towards that vision, right? So what's your thoughts on like really taking that vision and that operating system into the team and communicating it so everybody's on the same path?
I think you're onto, just you're exactly right. I mean, excuse me. A company so often, that's an entrepreneurial company, we should say, they start with an individual that has a vision, and they move forward and they cobble together different things. And as that company grows, it gets out of their control, or it puts that visionary in a place that they're not going to be as successful. So we can call it an integrator, we can call it a COO, we can call it, whatever we want to call it, but it's that person that becomes the glue for the team, that allows the visionary to spend their time where they're most successful, developing the big important relationships, diving into looking at the future and where they want to go, really setting a culture and a vision for the company, and not have to be bogged down in every detail. And so having that person on the team makes such a difference to release everyone's success within the company. Because really what that integrator does is they are making sure that everything that the visionary looks to accomplish is actually getting done. I worked with a business partner in college, and he was absolutely brilliant. And he had so many ideas, and it was so exciting to work with him, but it was also exhausting, because we could be working on a major event and he'd get an idea for something in the future. And I eventually bought a fishbowl, and I put it, because we had desks that, were looked at each other, that old partner desk concept. And I put it in the middle, and I said, dude, when you get a new idea, write it on the card and put it on the fishbowl. We will take time when we have time to bring them out and talk about them and then put plans together. But right now, we got to get stuff done. We have an event where we have 10,000 people come into town in a week, and I don't need to be talking about your idea to have a podcast right now. It's a great idea, but just not right now. And that discipline became really important to our partnership, and allowed us to actually get stuff done instead of just have ideas. Because the other part I'll say, had he not written on the piece of paper, he probably would have forgotten it. So that card in the fishbowl helped him remember all those great ideas he had as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great story, because if you look at entrepreneurs and inventors, they want to do everything at once. So inventors they develop a product, get a patent, try to get it to market. Many times they never get it to market because they want to move on to the next invention.
Right.
And so they never really grow a business. They're just coming up with ideas. And same thing with a lot of entrepreneurs. They'll grow a business so far, and they're like, okay, I'm done because I don't know what to do next, and they'll jump onto their next thing. So it's so important to really have that integrator in place. And it's kind of like, it reminds me of the book that Gary Keller wrote, founder of Keller Williams, is The One Thing.
Sure.
Because you can't work on 10 things at once. Like I'm a visionary, and I come up with all these different ideas too. And I'm like, okay, Michelle, settle down. Let's come up with 3 things, 1 to 2, 3 things we're going to work on, but let's pick one thing first. And that's so important. That's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. But I do encourage everybody to read The One Thing, because entrepreneurs, it's like shiny penny, right? See a squirrel,
Yes.
squirrel syndrome. It's the shiny penny syndrome. Pick it up. And so that's very important to keep people focused. How do you, because I've had clients struggle with this before, and we work with a lot of clients on the road tax to get their business ready for sale, and that's usually a 1 to 2 year program. But my biggest question is like, how do you find the right integrators? It is so tough to find that integrator that, number one, gels with your vision, gels with you as a founder, gels with your vision, gels with your team, can really integrate the entrepreneur's vision, and can see it come to fruition. How do you go about finding a good, solid integrator? Because that's a struggle.
That's a really, I mean, it is a struggle. I mean, as we all know, it's a struggle to find the right person for every job.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the world, but the people that are best equipped for each position become super important. I will say that in my experience with some of my company, as well as with some of my clients, oftentimes the integrator is grown. Maybe they were their director of operations, and then they had a bigger vision than just operations, or maybe they're their sales and marketing vice president that is great at sales and marketing but understands the overall picture. I would even say, I'll go back to my mother. My mother started as an accountant and a bookkeeper, really, before she was an accountant, but she had such a more entrepreneurial spirit. She became this amazing integrator at every company that she either started herself or that she went to work for early in her career. If we're starting fresh and we have to go out and recruit, it becomes so important that we look at really defining what we're looking for.
Because an integrator is a whole different type of person that you're looking for than any of your other employees. It's very different than a manager, than a general manager, even than a COO many times. So you really got to get crystal clear on what you want the integrator to do. But they're, don't you agree? They're like even more unique than a CEO in many aspects. They are really your right arm, your left brain that is helping you um, connect
No,
that.
I agree 100%, Michelle. I mean, it becomes so important when you find that person. You also got to work to keep them because they're the ones that are really making sure your success happens.
Yeah, and you got to make sure they're rewarded, graciously for that as well. But I'm going to go back to finding them. Do you have a pool of implementers or integrators that you work with? Do you know any resources of where to go to get to?
So our clients that have had to find integrators, what we've really dove into is developing a profile of that position and then recruiting towards that.
Okay.
Um, we work with the PI, the predictive index,
Yeah.
with all of our clients because it becomes super important to identify that skill set with the person's natural ability.
Yeah.
So when we're looking for a new integrator for a team, we're looking internally as well as externally, but we're making sure it's a fit for what that job entails in their business. Sometimes they need an expertise in that certain level of business, but oftentimes we've found that that's not necessarily a requirement. If someone's good at business and operating a functional business and is able to get everything to work together, they can change industries. I mean, I'm a great example of that. I've worked in multiple different industries, and honestly, that's also part of the shiny penny that you mentioned. Is I work with one company, and then I mastered this. We've gotten somewhere. Let's go on to this. Looks interesting over here, or something falls into my lap, and it's like, hey, let's be here. But it really makes sure when you're looking to find someone, you really need to know what you're looking to find, and that is, to
Well,
me,
it's a unique position. It's not
it
your
is.
typical, like I said, it's not your typical hire.
I agree completely.
And I agree about industries. I mean, we're industry agnostic, and selling a business is selling a business is selling a business.
Yep.
But I have a luxury brand says, "Have you ever sold luxury brands?" Well, of course. But even if I didn't, it's a business. There's different nuances to different industries, but at the end of the day, it's still a business, and the components to selling a company are the same. Just like the components to fixing and growing a business is the same. Okay.
I agree 100%.
So now let's talk about what I find really fascinating. And that's, becoming environmentally conscious and really centering your vision, your business, your focus around being environmental friendly. And I know that's a big thing that you've been working on. I know that you had a business that was kind of dying a little bit on the branch, and then you brought in a completely different concept to kind of revitalize that business. Do you want to tell your story?
Sure. So I guess it's about 12 years ago. I was in, that period of transition, and I got a phone call from my mother saying, "Hey, I need your help." Her company had, in the span of a couple weeks, had their payroll clerk get arrested and their controller have a nervous breakdown. Um,
Wait,
and
the payroll clerk got arrested.
Yep, had nothing to do with the business. So let's
Ah,
put that
okay,
there.
that's good.
But she got arrested, and so she wasn't going to be there. And that then caused the controller to have a nervous breakdown, and they didn't have anyone to do payroll, and they had all these things. And what my mom knew about me is I'll jump into anything with both feet and figure it out. Um, and so I jumped in, and then we got that stuff taken care of. We got that payroll out. We got control of everything. The controller was kind of doing it. Was the end of the year, so that was interesting. But we found a new controller, got him recruited, and I was really getting ready to leave when we sat down and we had a discussion of, hey, we're struggling in these other areas. What do you think? And when I really dove into it, what I came to discover is they offered a product, a manufactured product in the building production space. They manufactured architectural wood doors, but they had nothing that differentiated them from the competition. Honestly, when we looked at it, what we could say is we make doors just about as good as anyone else. We just charge more. Um,
That's a great slogan. You should get all the business in the world because of that.
and that's not a recipe for success. So, we dove in to try to figure out how could we differentiate. And we looked at the market, and I spent a lot of time just diving in there. And what we came to realize is that where the market was going, especially in the state of California, was more stringent requirements for environmental responsibility. And so we really dove into that, and we developed a strategy there that eventually became the strategy to become the most environmentally responsible manufacturer of flushwood doors on the planet. And that was such a game changer for our company because it changed the discussion. No longer were we chasing the jobs. Jobs were coming to us because we're the only ones qualified to supply it. When Google, was developing their headquarters, they wanted the most environmentally responsible product. We were the only ones that qualified. When Salesforce,
Your doors are in Google.
what was that?
Your doors are in Google.
Doors are in Google. Doors are in Salesforce Tower. Doors are all over.
Oh,
And especially it started in California again because it started as a standard in the building code and it kept moving up there. But that's really was my introduction to how being green can bring you more green. Because our product was so specialized at that point, we could charge more and we could get more business. I was always somewhat of an environmentalist. I will admit I'm a University of Oregon person. We come from really appreciating nature, but it also lit up for me how business and environmental responsibility can really make a difference. Now, oftentimes I'm asked, well, doesn't it cost more money? And I'm going to say that honestly, it doesn't necessarily cost more money. There are investments to make, but when you start, you can start with savings. You can look at, you can put your green team together, which I always encourage. We get a group of people in the company that are really interested in environmental and social responsibility and put them on a team and let them go loose. And maybe their first charge is, hey, let's save money and energy. Then our second charge is let's save money in transportation. Then the next one is let's save money in materials. And then from there, we can go, all right, so we've saved this money. Now let's invest some of that money into how can we become more responsible in the decisions we make. So it's not always, and I would say oftentimes it is not just an expense. It's an investment, yes, but it also can be a savings. The other part that I always look at is, go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you drill down a little bit more on how it could be a savings for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, it becomes a savings when we really dive into what is our charge. Where can we look at waste? Waste is another place that we can produce multiple savings. I will tell you, within the door company, we were having the garbage company come every day to pick up dumpsters of just material that was waste in there. When we invested in looking, how can we use this waste? How can we reduce what we're wasting? We found opportunities to use materials, or we got partnerships where we could actually sell what that product that we would have just thrown away, other companies needed it. So we wouldn't have found that had our green team not jumped into from the standpoint of let's reduce waste. We can look at it from a supply chain standpoint. We get used to, we work with the same suppliers, and we've come to an economy where, again, we don't go down the street to buy something, we order it online, and then it gets delivered to us. But if we change that and say, okay, what are our local opportunities where we can cut down on transportation costs and shipping costs? What are some partnerships that we can make with other local companies so it meets everyone's needs and desires and profits? I always say that we look at the triple bottom line when we look at sustainability. We look at profits, we look at planet, and we look at people. So we just expand that a little bigger from just profit or even just people. The other thing that we also often find is companies that really adopt a commitment to sustainability, they really have a benefit of attracting the right people into their company. So often, especially the younger generation, they don't want to work with companies that are not socially responsible. They want to feel that they go to work for more than just a paycheck. And sustainability is so important to that. I will tell you, from our end, the people we brought into the company after making the switch was like light and day. And it's because we had a reputation and people wanted to work with us.
Right. Wow. So how do you go about creating and putting together your green team? Are that existing employees, or you look outside of your existing business to
I always say in the beginning, we're always going to look at our existing team.
Okay.
Because when we start out, there's low-hanging fruit to accomplish. And, when we get the people on the team and they feel that they're part of something, it can really make a difference. When we go back to that entrepreneur that, makes every decision and doesn't let anything go, maybe this is something, because they've never worked on it, they'll let go. And so it gives that opportunity for that small team of people that are not necessarily on the leadership team. I always say we want a cross-functional team and only one member of that team to be from the leadership team. And I don't care what position they have on the leadership team. I care about their commitment to the success of it. So it could be your controller who's really into finance, but also has this green feeling and wants to be a part of it. It could be your operations person. It could be your salesperson. I will tell you, in our company, it started from sales, because the salespeople were looking for what differentiates us. And that for them went, okay, I will dive
in. That's what salespeople are always looking for. How are we unique? Let's set this apart from our competitors. Yeah. So
and the other part I'll say is, it's so important that we don't do what's called greenwashing. It needs to be real. Greenwashing is when we say we're environmentally responsible, but it's just lip service, and it's just like we took green paint, but we didn't change anything. And so when we really invest in our green team, we want them to have actual accomplishments. They can determine their metrics, they can determine what that initial low-hanging fruit is, but the charge from the leadership team is, hey, we want to improve XYZ. How can we make that happen? And I would say, because most companies are reluctant in the beginning, because they haven't thought in the environmental space, is let's start with those savings. Let's give them the first charge is, yes, become more environmentally responsible, but save money while you do it. And so that changes their way of thinking as well. When the green team knows, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to make our company better in our environmental space, but we're also going to save money, it's a real game changer. And then as they continue to grow, they keep finding those opportunities.
Wonderful. So the strategy, so you mentioned the strategy for doors, going environmentally conscious with doors, but this can be in any industry, like we talked about before. It's really industry agnostic. Even if you have a service business, any industry can adopt or incorporate or create their own strategy. There's right. There's
Absolutely.
sustainability strategy.
One of my
About
clients
us.
is a restaurant group. And when their green team dove into this, they identified some things that they were always throwing away from tables. They always brought a plate that was really nice, but so often it was just going to waste. So they changed the concept from, hey, we have some options. Do you want all of these? And by changing that discussion, that cut down, and they focused on food waste initially. Then they looked at material waste. And at the time, they'd come to the table, and to be nice, they'd throw down a big packet of paper napkins. But again, once they cleared the table, they're throwing those away if the customer didn't use them, because they'd get like sauce on them or whatever. It's a barbecue restaurant, so you can imagine. So they actually changed their focus. Is they actually put a paper towel roll, and again, it works with their theme, on the table for the extra napkins. So the customer actually pulls the paper towel roll off the centerpiece on the table, cut down on their material costs, because the paper towels are less expensive than the napkins, but it cut down on that waste. They also, then that team expanded much bigger than that, but that's how they started. So yes, every company has some environmental opportunities if they take the time to look at it.
So we're an M&A firm. What would be our environmental opportunities?
I'm going to say the first one most likely is paper use.
Oh, right there. The whole desk is covered in paper.
Yeah, I'm going to tell. I mean, just as soon as you say that, I'm going to go. That's probably number one. Is there's probably a whole bunch of paper that they're using that they don't need to, because you have it on the screen, you have the file, you have it here. But so often we're used to, it's not official till we print it out.
Well, not only that, but I think there's different generations. The Gen Zs and millennials are really used to looking at the screen, being on the screen, very tech friendly, etc. But in our environment, we're dealing with so many financials, and yes, just because it's on the screen, you can look at it there, but we're making notes and we're doing all this stuff, and it is a little bit more difficult. But we're working towards. We always said we're going to become paperless, and that's not realistic. So in your strategy, you have to be realistic. We're going to cut down maybe 80%, 60% of our paper use.
No, and Michelle, that's such a great point, because so often perfect gets in the way of progress. If our goal is we're going to become completely paperless and we know we can't accomplish that, then we don't do anything. So we start with that small goal. Yeah. We start with, we're going to reduce, 50%. And then once you hit 50%, you can go to the next one. I will tell you, I'm a Gen Xer, and I'm a little older than I look, knock on wood. But when, for me, I started that we would write what we wanted to do, and then we would type
Gen Z. I'm a Gen Z. Y'all laugh at that, y'all are in trouble. Go ahead, my Gen Xer.
That's what I would have guessed right off, right there. But again, I want to say, I wasn't able to think on the screen initially. It was an adjustment. Now I can't really think. When I get the legal pad out, I'm just making notes. I'm not composing something. I'm going to jump into Word to compose something, which may even date me there, because most people aren't going to even keep Word. They're going to use the Google one now. But yeah, that's a big part of it. I will say this. I have found that it's so much easier to keep track of electronic files than it is paper.
1,000%. And one of the policies we have in my office is you don't come in here with a notepad. You come in with an iPad or a laptop, and you type everything up, and then that goes into our CRM, that goes into your file, that goes into the server, it goes in all the different places you need it, and it's more efficient. It's a lot more productive, and it cuts down on just wasting so much time from writing it down and then go typing it up and then putting it here and putting it there. So we are definitely paperless from that standpoint. So you gave me one. What's the other ones for M&A?
So the next one I'd probably look at is travel. It's like, and one thing that COVID taught us is we don't have to travel for everything. So can we cut down on that travel and do it remotely, like we've learned to do, as you and I are doing right now? We're accomplishing something, and you're in Louisiana and I'm in Nevada right now. So that would be the next thing I'd look at. The other part that we'd look at is, there's probably a great opportunity from your end to provide incentives for your clients to adopt more environmentally responsible practices. Maybe we would put together an audit that every one of your clients take, so we could find any area that might be a regulatory potential issue and correct it before it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
And
that's
so,
a great idea,
if you,
because one business at a time, going through an audit, correcting these issues and working towards, green and sustainability. What does it take? How do you change the world? One person at a time, right? One effort
exactly.
at a time. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
and I mean, we're seeing from investments now, there's a lot of investment funds that are looking at the whole ESG space. Again, that's environmental, social, and governance.
Yeah.
And that can really also add to the value of your company. We've talked about it so often, we have to have that structure so that the company isn't reliant on one person, but we also need to have a structure that's going to work in the future.
Right.
The other thing I'll tell you about, going back to one of my clients, is they were using a process and a chemical that eventually is going to be banned. And instead of waiting until that happened, they got in front of it. So when the ban happened, they were already in a position that they weren't using that chemical any longer. But they wouldn't have done that without looking at their environmental footprint. Looking at where are we, doing that audit that I talked about. And I could see that being super valuable for your clients. Maybe
that's extremely valuable.
I can help you with that.
Yeah, that's extremely valuable, because think about it. What if, what was the notice that this chemical was about to be banned? Like, how far in advance do they know? A lot of times, sellers don't tell everything, right?
Exactly.
Sellers don't disclose everything. I always say, think of me as your attorney. Some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I have to know everything. But a lot of times they don't think about it, or they don't know about it. So the environmental audit is huge, especially for manufacturing, plastics, chemicals, anything, and that ballpark. But even other type of industries, that's huge, because if you don't disclose that and you know about it, and the buyer doesn't find out in due diligence, that's a breach of reps and warranties, and you're going to have a big lawsuit on your hands. So there's so many different things to think about when you go to put a business on the market, when you go to sell a business, and environmental is one of the biggest ones, especially if you're in waste management and any type of agriculture. There's so many different industries that really have to maintain their environmental, what would you call it? What's the name you would use for it, Tim? Their environmental status.
Yeah, and we have the regulatory requirements.
Regulatory, that's the one I was looking for.
Yep.
Your, not the S. So yeah, I think that's very important. I'd love to start implementing those screenings, those audits for clients, because again, it's not what you know that gets you in trouble, it's what you don't know. And when you go to market, your whole deal can fall apart just because of something like this. And this isn't something small, this is huge.
No, I think you're on the right track there. And the other part that I always say is environmental responsibility isn't in a vacuum. We have to, for a company to be strong, it needs to be strong in all areas. And that's where we're just, we are a part of that when we look at environment, but we're a very important and a crucial part that so often companies don't look at. And, that's where I always start. I don't push that you must have a sustainability strategy. I encourage it. And I will tell that every client that I've had that has done it has always came back and went, wow, that really was a game changer for us. And maybe it wasn't a huge savings to the bottom line, but it was such a huge game changer to the people component within their company, because they allowed people with a passion in their company to have an outlet for it.
Yeah. And that's not just the employees, that's your clients, that's your vendors, that's your partners, that's your entire, your entire
100%.
People think about just their employees, but then they're not thinking about their clients, or they think about just their clients and employees, and then they don't think about their vendors at all. People lose vendors, companies lose vendors all the time because of different things like this.
And we may discover a better vendor when we take the time to look at what is our vendor's environmental responsibility commitment.
Yeah, 1,000%. So tell our listeners again that the top three benefits from sustainability and really, you know what I like about the green team too, before you get into that, is they're holding each other accountable. It's not just
Accountability is so
in
important.
charge, yeah. So go ahead and tell them, what's the three biggest tips to going environmental friendly or sustainability?
The first one is to do an audit of what are our current practices, put together a green team, and then charge that green team with a mission to save money while making a difference environmentally. And I'll say the biggest benefits of that are reducing cost, encouraging creativity and attracting the right employees, and increasing sales and increasing your brand value. Those are the biggest difference, just off the top of my head.
Now, do you ever donate to other, green nonprofits, environmentally safe nonprofits, anything like that?
Some of our clients, they choose to do that. Some of our clients, really have went to totally green power and have developed partnerships with their power company in that regard. Sometimes they've done specific events for their team where they've raised money and then donated that. The other part is I have a couple clients that just do a community day to clean up the community every quarter, where their employees and their families get together. And one of my favorites is they actually do it for elderly residents in their town who don't have the energy to keep up their yards and that type of thing. So they come in once a quarter and help with that. It helps the beautification of their community, but it also really develops that spirit of team. So yeah, I will admit, I never tell a client exactly what they have to do, but I work with them to discover what they want to do and what will make an impact.
Yeah, I wasn't so much referring to a client. We have a lot of business owners and partners that we work with in other companies that I own, that we ask, our employees, what is their charity of choice? What's important to them? What do they want to give back to? What's their nonprofit of choice? And get the employees and the team to buy into that. And it might just be individual, where sometimes part of their bonuses go to their charity of choice, and they're not taxed on that.
Another client of mine, they have a whole giving team as well. And they set their priorities for giving. And their number one is a person from their team involved in that nonprofit?
Right.
So that encourages their team. Maybe it's like one of your employees is coaching the Little League team. And so, they're going to sponsor that Little League team, because they're going to invest not only in the community, but they're also going to invest in their employee. The other thing they look at is how does it benefit our local community versus the broader one? And sometimes, I have one client that has multiple operations. And so they have giving teams at each one, as well as the overall corporate giving team.
Yeah.
And that plays in there a lot.
All right, great. Well, we're almost to the end here. Do you have any other golden nuggets, any words of wisdom you want to drop to the audience about operating systems, strategies, sustainability, you name it? It's your time.
Michelle, the one thing I always say is it can sound overwhelming to go, oh my gosh, we have to think about environment. We have to think about an operating system. We have to do all these things. I got to tell you, I make it really easy for my clients. We go through a process that makes sense, and we get them there by looking at their business and really releasing the power of their team. And so start. We talked about that perfect gets in the way of progress. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to get better. And, get started and take one step at a time, and it's going to be amazing what happens.
Like Nike says, just do it.
Exactly. I think I got the right here.
I mean, and that's every aspect of our life, People are saying, I need to work out, I need to work out, I need to work out. Just get up and start working out. The hardest thing in life is to get started. I mean, I remember when I wrote my very first book, I was like, oh my God, what I do, what I do. And I just said, here's my time frame. I'm gonna write this book in 6 to 7 weeks. It's gonna be during the holidays. I'm gonna tell everybody not to bother me unless there's a fire or somebody died. And I just started, and I didn't wait for perfection.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. Any other words of wisdom? I know you have so many in that.
I mean, the other thing I would say is there's no shame in getting help. We talked about before, you want to surround yourself with people that know stuff that you don't. And, when people decide to hire us, I know they're always getting over that mental block of, I should know how to do this on my own. And you know what? You don't. So bring in the experts, and we're going to help you get there. We're going to empower your team, and we're going to make life better for you and your company.
Yeah, and it's a necessity. I always say it's hard to read the label from the inside of the bottle. You need an outsider's perspective to read the warning signs and keep you out of the danger zone. And everyone in business should get themselves a mentor. And not just any mentor, but somebody who's traveled the path that they want to travel, because learn from other people's mistakes rather than from learning from your own. And they'll shorten your path to success dramatically. But do your DD, do your due diligence. I've had so many business owners come to me and go, oh my God, I hired the wrong marketing company, or I hired the wrong sales company that said that they were going to close our sales, and they ended up, burning bridges and ruining our brand and reputation. So you have to be very careful when you decide to work with somebody, but do your due diligence. And but I believe in mentorships for sure. So Tim, how can our audience reach out to you? You've been an amazing guest. How can I get in contact with you? How can I learn more?
Yeah, the easiest way to get in touch with me is through my personal website, timcox360.com. You're going to go there. All my contact information's there, all my social media, just a great way to follow up. And Michelle, I got to tell you, thank you so much. This has been a great opportunity. I've loved talking to you today. And don't be afraid to let me know how I can help you.
You're going to help me audit my clients.
Let's do it.
That's what you're going to help with. And, everybody listening, they should really go back and listen to this episode again and again, because there were a lot of great tips, a lot of great advice, a lot of golden nuggets here today as far as sustainability, strategies, operating systems, et cetera, to make your company a better company, not just a better company, but, a better environment for your employees, a better place for your clients. That, we all want to help. For me, I'm sure you do, Tim, as well, Tim, we all want to leave a better mark on this world and help make it a better place. And you do that by one person at a time.
Yep, one person, one step at a time.
One person, one step. So I encourage everyone to go back and listen to this episode, reach out to Tim. And I know he can help you. He's going to help us. He's going to help my clients. So thank you so much, Tim. You're a great guest. Thanks again to all of my listeners at Exit Rich. If you like this, well, I know you like this episode, so go ahead and share it with your community. Share it with your friends, your coworkers, your entrepreneurs. Share it with everyone on social media. Let's spread the word to help business owners beautify the community and really create a sustainability strategy that works for you, your team, your clients, your company. Till next time, we'll see you next week on another episode of Exit Rich.